So I just put out a video of a song that I was playing. I called it Birds Turn to Pixels. I'll put a link down below. And I just wanted to walk through how I arranged it and saved the piece through editing. What happened was I was playing around in my studio and I was just layering up synth parts and I was trying to load together a piece that didn't have like a looped in repeating feel because that's an easy thing to get stuck in when you're constructing like a beat or a loop based sequence piece where we just kind of lock into this one thing. So I was trying to break away from that by just recording longer phrases and then cutting together bigger pieces of musical information. And I recorded a bass line and some chord pads and some lead lines and an arpeggiated thing. And I went through with it and it wasn't good. It didn't sound great. It didn't have a great feel. It felt pretty um too far in the other direction. It didn't have enough repetition. It didn't have enough structure within itself um, to feel like I could grab anything out of it. That said, I'm not a composer. I just like to have something to play over. I have colleagues and friends who are wonderful composers who can put together really, really well thought out, connected, changing ideas. They're great at it, but there's still stuff to be done even when it's not your strongest suit. And I like to push to do the best that I possibly can. So what happened was I had all of these disconnected, uh, random, not random, but they didn't flow. So I took the individual pieces and I loaded them into the MPC to see if I could edit myself and use the power of editing to make something a little more coherent and a little more structured and just something that just had more feel and vibe. So what happened was I took my lines. So like here's my arpeggio line. And there's 3.5 minutes of this. I could start out over here. So there's a lot to grab from. That on its own, it's not bad. The and the thing is I didn't want to just throw away the work that I had done. I had recorded all this stuff and it felt like there was almost something there. And then here is my bass line. If I just bring it in right here. 3.5 minutes of that. And that's fine. That's a good bass tone. That is a bass part. And then here is this chord pad. So that has a ton of vibe and character. It's almost like a Rhodes. It's close. And I liked what was starting to happen. I just didn't like what was happening when everything was happening together. So I took these lines and then I chopped up those, the chord pad and the arpeggiator and the bass line, and I divided them up into just little chunks of themselves. So if I open one of those up, here is my arpeggiator all gridded out, and these are all a measure long. Okay, so I can play and edit my part. And then by taking that very, very free-flowing, non-structured piece, I can cycle through it, and I can control its level of structure and control how repetitive it is. And it brings it out into a little more of a musical thing. So that's the arpeggiator, and then my bass line, same deal. Smaller chunks. The chord part. I also went ahead and threw some effects onto everything just to give them some life. Um, just basic like reverb, some bit crushing on the chords, and then some basic mixing stuff. Channel strip with some EQ and some compression on everybody. Um, just to give them their own sonic space. And then I have a drum kit just to, put some drums on. And then I went ahead, so I've got the 3 instrument tracks, the arpeggiator, the bass, and the chord pad, and then the drums on a 4th track. And I went ahead and made a verse sequence, a chorus, a break, a second verse, and an outro. And I just made those templates without having anything recorded or sequenced, just to give myself a framework of what's going to happen. They're all 12 bars, so on and so forth. And then sequence 1 is the intro. I just didn't name it. So then when I rearranged these, I just had a constraint to work through. I'm going to have these 4 tracks, 3 instruments, and drums. I'm going to have an intro. I'm going to have a first verse. I'm going to have a chorus. I'm going to have a breakdown. I'm going to have a second verse. I'm going to have an outro. And just putting my head into that space where I have these predefined events, and I kind of have to work with that. And then I find life within it. So I went ahead and recorded sequences for these events. Now, the MPC just is a thing that I feel comfortable working in this way with. You could do this on a computer. You could do this with a machine or an SP. Anything that feels good to you. I just like how this organizes. So, my intro, it went from being these long, non-constrained, kind of free-form, multiple things going together, to just this tighter idea of what everything is. So there's the arpeggio part. And the bass, I just basically totally constrained it, instead of really, really notey passages, I was just hammering on one note in rhythm, like a good, groovy bass line. the pad, I've got cycling through like 2 or 3 ideas throughout the sequence. It's not floating all over the place. It's just holding down that ambience and not walking around everywhere. Now, I don't want this video to be 40 minutes, so, just blasting through everything really quick. There's a verse. And I was able to just go through those chops that I had made and just find new things through the editing and just new patterns. Chorus. Constrained it to like 2 phrases here. And then a breakdown, I was able to use all of the sampling, and I pitched down the drums. I did lots of note repeat on the drums to make them do crazy glitchy sounds, and just putting my head into like, I want a breakdown. I want it to get weird here. I just had this predefined target, so then I was soloing over it, and I knew the breakdown was happening. I knew to get ready to get weird. Goes into a second verse. Which has the arpeggio. You can hear it just hammering on a more looped in, constrained thing. Because the breakdown was so out, I just wanted the, when it comes back to the verse, just to snap into like one solid idea. And then there's an outro. So it goes down to just the chord pad and some pretty messed up drums. And I thought that was a cool way to end it. So I chopped up those samples, I added some drums, and then I laid them out into 5, 6 sequences, and then made those sequences happen. After that, I went ahead and on the MPC, you can add automation really, really easily. So like if I go to my second verse, I've got some reverb automated. The clipping of the lo-fi plugin on the chord pad is just rising throughout the sequence. And there's just little stuff like that all over, like just delay throws, wider reverbs, a little more reverb mix, just so as it progresses through the sequence, there's just a little extra happening throughout the piece. And automation, I mean, you can add it in your computer super easily. You can do it on any sampler. And it's just always a great idea to liven up like an electronic passage. You can just make it subtly change over 12 bars or over 24 bars. After I laid out those sequences, I just went ahead and went into the song mode and programmed that in to just go intro, verse, chorus, breakdown, verse 2, chorus again, and then outro. And then I had a full piece to work with. It came out to 3.5 minutes long. And then it was just, after it was all gridded out and edited, it was way easier to come up with a solo over it and just have it feel like it was a cohesive piece. And that's the power of not just throwing material away. Just find a way to, if something isn't working, just edit it down to its fundamentals and see if you could pull something out of it. Cool. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.